What's up, everybody? Welcome to Respect Authoritah, Wisecrack South Park podcast. My name is Jared, and today we're breaking down South Park Season 22, Episode 4, Tegridy Farms. But before that, let's introduce the other authoritarians. We got Ryan.
Howdy ho, neighbors.
And Lux.
What's up, dudes?
And Amanda is actually out visiting her family in Florida today, so she's not going to be with us. But she did leave us a voicemail with her thoughts. Awesome. So instead of me doing the guessing as to what people thought about this episode, we're just going to let Amanda do it. All right. So, Ryan, let's play the voicemail.
Into the voicemails and go, Amanda.
Hey, dudes, it's Amanda. I'm just calling from LaGuardia Airport to rate this episode a solid C. I feel like the first 4 minutes were like the best of the season so far, but it just didn't really seem to have anywhere to go. For guesswork, I feel like Ryan's gonna rate it an F-. Jared's gonna be like a C, and Lux will be like a B. And yeah, I'll have to listen to find out if I'm right. Have a great episode. Bye, guys.
All right. Thank you, Amanda. All right. So let's start with Ryan. How did Amanda do?
I guess she's worse at this than you.
Oh.
I didn't love it as much as last time, but I mean, I'd probably give it honestly a B+ or an A-.
Okay.
But yeah, F-, huh? I don't why the heck?
Because
as
so
the
far,
one person who smokes the most weed on this podcast,
I think that's debatable.
Why would she think that? Anyway, keep going.
Well, because so far this season, it's been very polar with you. It's either been A+++ or just
I think South Park's been polar. It's not me, but yeah.
Okay. Okay. Our Lux.
So this is kind of middle of the road, but I like it more than I didn't like it.
Okay, Lux. What about you?
All right, I'm gonna be the Ryan on this episode and give this one an A+++.
Oh, wow. Cool.
This was my favorite episode of the season by like orders of magnitude.
Nice. It is funny.
You know, if I was doing the guessing, I was going to guess that because I know that Lux likes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you just love the Tegridy joke.
I love the Tegridy joke.
Yeah.
I hate vapes.
Vaping right now with my Green Willy Stranger.
I smoke a lot of weed. Like this episode just hit all my things. Then also, like we talked about on the show, like I don't need South Park to do trenchant social analysis because it's my job to do social analysis, and I get to hang out with a bunch of people who do it all the time.
Sure.
So I like when South Park's funny and weird, and this episode was extremely funny and weird. And it was less like, we have a point to make today.
Well, Amanda was sort of right with me. I would give it a B to B+. I like it a lot. Mm-hmm. I wasn't crazy about it. And I agree with her that the first 4 minutes of the episode were absolutely hilarious. Like, I was so excited to hear Randy talking about how modern life sucks so much that we got to just go back to living on the farms and creating stuff with our hands and selling only what you make. And the jokes, or the overall joke after that, was still funny. But I've had a bit of a hard time wrapping my head around what exactly the message is, and I've come away with some thoughts, but we'll discuss that a little bit further. Before we get into the recap, though, I want to remind you guys, if you want to send us a voicemail, number is 213-534-8807, and also Alec and Ryan and Greg from Thug Notes and I are all doing a live show the night of the 26th at 10 p.m., so if you would like more information on that, hit us up on Twitter or go to our Twitter page and there's more information there. All right, guys. So let's go into a recap. So hearing that his daughter bribed a hall monitor with a picture of a dog's butthole is the last straw for Randy Marsh. Seems like things can't get worse, so Randy decides to sell their house in South Park, buy a farm, and live off the land to live a life of Tegridy on a farm that sells nothing but weed. Back at school, Kyle is disturbed to find out that Ike and the other kindergartners are into vaping. He eventually discovers that Butters and Cartman are the ones selling it, but haven't made enough money to pay off their overhead. Cartman promises Kyle once they pay off their dealer, they're out. Towley shows up at Tegridy Farms to test Randy's product before it goes to market, but gets so high that he doesn't leave. Soon a vaping executive wants to do business with Tegridy Farms, but Randy wants no part of those pussy sticks. Kyle tries to smooth things over with the dealer, but Cartman and Butters blackmail and rob him, leaving no one for the sixth graders to get vapes from. When Randy catches Stan with a vape pen, he decides he needs to confront the pussies who are ruining his way of life. Cartman and Butters convince Kyle to help them rob the vape store to make the sixth graders happy, And as the boys siphon the vape juice, Randy tractors over to the vape store and beats the shit out of all the pussies there, and together with Towley, defeats the vaping executive and blows up the store. Back at the farm, Towley and Randy recognize that there are trials ahead for people who want to live with Tegridy by selling people weed. End of episode.
So good.
That recap sounded way better with my Green Willie Stranger vape that I was hitting.
Green Willie Stranger?
Yeah, that was Randy, one of Randy's favorite
Oh,
flavors.
yeah. I think my favorite one was what he said, like catatonic Tegridy strain or something
or
like
the house
that.
blend was, and then
I really like the Tegridy Jungle Kush. As
oh
a
yeah,
name.
jungle.
Yeah. So,
And that should fuck Tally up real bad.
so first thing I want to bring up is I think this is up to this point, we've discussed this season as the season of resignation, the season of defeat, where all the characters are struggling on how to cope with modern life and stick to their principles, and they eventually just give up. And I think that this episode is kind of a turning point for that. So I'm going to read what Randy says at the beginning of the episode. He says, "I'm over it, Sharon." He says, "I'm over it, Sharon. I'm seriously over it. Don't you just want to start over? Go back to simpler times. I've had it. School shootings, pieces of shit taking Ambien and tweeting, priests raping kids, and suddenly I'm not laughing anymore. Let's do it, Sharon. Let's buy a farm and live off the land." So, right off the bat, one of the funniest things to me is the fact that a picture, out of all these things, a picture of a dog's butthole is what makes it not funny anymore.
Right, and it was so well done in the episode because they start off with that, like, they've added the gunshots to like the piano riff for the school, like it's just the same music file now, I think.
Yeah, we got an email of someone saying that we didn't mention that in the last episode, which we kind of totally brushed over.
Yeah. Well, in the last episode, I think that was just setting the tone for being able to do what they're doing in this episode, which is like integrating into the theme and then immediately cutting to something to juxtapose it to, which is like how they made this episode so funny to me. Like, it starts off like theme gunshots and cuts inside, and they're talking about this vapes and buttholes and shit. And Randy freaks the fuck out in a way he didn't freak out about any of the shootings and stuff. But we're reminded immediately that like he forgot about the shootings because they're still happening at the school even at that moment, which is like A, an amazing joke, and B, really well structured bit of television.
The whole dog butthole thing, like, I mean, it is hilarious, but I definitely was kind of like, what are they trying to say with this exact moment? Because, I mean, that's not a thing, right? I mean,
well, no, that's the joke. It's that all these things that are a thing, like real problems with priests molesting children and real problems with school shootings and real problems with outrage mobs, that is, you know, Randy can deal with that. But dog butthole pictures, that is
over the line. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's something that doesn't happen in real life. And that's, I mean, I know kids are vaping a lot more, but
right.
Yeah. Okay.
But he's not even really concerned about the
pivot
vaping.
away from being like, this 13-year-old sent a picture of her butthole or something. You know what I mean? Like, they just don't want to have that in the narrative.
It's just like a sexting thing.
Yeah. Like, I think they like gestured towards sexting. They just pivoted away. So like, we don't have to deal with that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like this intro and how it's a bit of a pivot for the season. It's resignation no more. It's time to take action. No longer have the challenges of modernity crush us. It's time to reclaim a little Tegridy.
Right, and I like how it's I like how both in that sense it's juxtaposed with like the vape man and his like high-tech vape science. Like as an opposition to the farm, and then also like
wait, when you mean vape man, you're not talking about the Kool-Aid man vape man. You're talking about the executive.
You're right. I forgot about the Kool-Aid vape man. I was just speaking in my weird vernacular. The vape executive, I guess is what we can call him. Like the farm is so juxtaposed to that character, and they use that character in such a good way to like make the farm seem appealing. But then also like he's just selling weed on a farm. Like he's not getting away from the complex world we live in. The world we live in wouldn't exist. Like weed wouldn't exist without like the world we live in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like very illusory in a way that I think is both insightful and again very funny and also extremely Randy.
But he could sell it on the farm and still have that good old farm living, you know. I mean, every farmer's got to sell to the city market at some point.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what I mean is that like he can escape to some degree, but he can't get all the way away from all this shit.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a step away, but it's not like a full escape is what I mean. I think that like Randy looks at it that way, but sort of even Sharon knows that it's like a little bit silly.
So let's talk more about.
I love episodes where Randy is like, I have an idea and I know what I'm doing, and everyone around him is like, this is dumb, and he keeps doing it.
Yeah, Randy
Randy's just the best character.
This was a
in
classic
South Park.
Randy episode and a classic Cartman episode, which is why I love this one so much. Like it really got to the core of both those characters in a very good way.
Speaking of the core of Cartman, can we take a moment to acknowledge that Cartman didn't wipe when he was taking a shit talking to Butters?
Oh, I did not notice that.
Yeah,
I definitely
loved
noticed
that.
it
I loved
because
every single second of that scene.
he took a long extended pause to take a
relieve
shit
himself.
and then he just gets up and then he leaves. I mean, he is disgusting.
Yeah, he's repulsive.
He had
But see,
business to take care
that
of.
scene typifies like why this is a classic Cartman episode. Because what makes Cartman so great, I mean, there's a lot of things that make Cartman great, but one of them is that like he's very good at shifting the power dynamic of individual moments to make him the person in power. And that scene shows that really well because Butters kicks in the door to the bathroom, and in most things, like that's Butters is in charge, right? Like he's standing, Cartman's sitting, he's on the toilet, he's vulnerable. And then Cartman takes the power back by literally telling Butters to shut up and then literally takes a shit. Right? Like he seizes the power back in the situation. He does that over and over throughout the episode, which is like such classic Cartman shit and always makes me laugh. And I fucking loved it.
And he even does it at the end of that scene, although we don't really see the reaction to it. But as soon as he recognizes that Kyle is onto him, he says, "Oh, Kyle, well, did you know that vaping is healthier and better for you than smoking?"
Right, and then he does it every time Kyle goes to talk to an authority figure too. Like he's just already there, and he's like, "Oh, we were already talking to this person." Like he takes control of the situation when Kyle thinks he's in charge over and over again, which is just like so Cartman.
It's also did you guys get a Breaking Bad vibe from Cartman and Butters in this? Because it felt like it was one of those things like Breaking Bad writing conventions where it's like, all right, one little part of our plan breaks down, so then we have to create a whole other complicated plan to fix that one little part of our plan. It felt very Jesse and Walt to me. But
I didn't see that while I was watching it, but now that you say it, I 100% agree. That's super on point.
All right, guys, what do you think Tegridy means? What does Tegridy mean to you?
Man, it means just rolling up your sleeves, getting yourself up by your bootstraps and just making a hard, honest living, just, working with your hands, even though you're sitting on a tractor sometimes, you're just out there, out in nature, out in the elements, just working hard for your money. That's Tegridy, baby, to me.
See, I think Tegridy is less of a place and more of an idea.
Okay, go on.
Like you can have Tegridy anywhere doing what you do as long as you do it like for yourself and aren't like co-opted by all the things around you and doing it for other people.
You can't have
Tegridy.
You can't have Tegridy out there in modern society when there's butthole dog pictures and vapes everywhere. There's just no Tegridy out there. All that is just
I think that's the challenge South Park
anti-Tegridy
is laying before us. Is like, can we find Tegridy in a world full of buttholes and vapes?
Well, yeah, I think maybe in the next episode there's gonna be some transcendental enlightenment that goes over South Park. But right now, I think what we're supposed to believe is that you can't find Tegridy unless you're just outside of this fucked up culture we're in.
Yeah, I love Tegridy. Here's what I think Tegridy means, at least initially what it means to Randy. And I think, so one of my favorite things about this episode is that the vaping executive and Cartman are always making these claims to progress. Vaping is progress. What would you rather the kindergartners drink? Would you rather them smoke regular cigarettes?
It is more healthier.
It is healthier. And so, at least with Randy at the beginning, Tegridy to him is like a growing skepticism towards claims of progress. Everything that stinks of technological progress now scares us into thinking that there's going to be unintended consequences, which we have seen in previous episodes. So Randy, of course, overreacts and believes that the only way to reclaim Tegridy is to become a farmer. and also later, when he starts beating up all of the hipster vapor guys, I think that it's like a rejection of urban living and any kind of inner city softness, hipsterdom, in favor of like this rugged, salt of the earth masculinity. And
those city slickers and their pussy sticks.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't even make sense, which is why it's so funny. Randy says that vapes are ruining his way of life, even though the vaping company wants to work with the farm. But here's the irony of Tegridy, and I think what I like most about this episode is because both Randy and the vaping exec are full of shit. They're both making these claims to some higher moral idea, whether it's Tegridy or whether it's progress. And I think that Tegridy and progress are kind of like these terms in the episode that would seem to represent two polarized ideas, but really it's just the same bullshit. Because the vaping company claims to be progressive because it's healthier, when really they're just selling addictive substances to children with all their fruity flavors, while Randy claims to have Tegridy because he sells hemp, but really he's just selling weed.
And like, I mean, they show that really clearly with Randy lapsing in and out of his accent throughout the episode.
Right.
Like he changes from like city guy to country guy and back constantly because like he doesn't actually have Tegridy. He's just Randy on a farm now, as opposed to Randy in the city.
And Greg, not Greg, Jared. I have a friend named Greg I'm meeting later. But are you saying just because he's trying to make a profit, or are you saying the fact that it's weed makes it have no integrity?
I don't know. I actually am a little bit fuzzy on that part because I wasn't entirely sure what the joke is. I love the image. First of all, I think one of the most telling things is that they have that one shot where it's a wide shot of all the other cannabis farms.
Yeah.
And all of them say, you know, Jill and Mike's cannabis farm,
Yeah,
Bob's marijuana farm, and then his just says Tegridy Farms. He doesn't even admit to what he's selling, I guess, until the very end.
Oh, yeah, there's a marijuana leaf on the sign.
Right, but everything is hemp, hemp, hemp. I didn't really quite get the joke because I always was expecting that the hemp milk that he's drinking and the food that he's giving his family, I was expecting it to make them really high all of a sudden, and then the joke is that, oh, he's not actually making these renewable, environmentally friendly hemp products. He's just selling weed.
Well, I think you're looking into that too much because I think that it's clear that he's smoking weed, especially with the selling weed. I don't think he's hiding that. Like even the towel-y testing scene is him going like, hey, how'd that get, you know, did you get that get you high, you know? And he's clearly wanting it to get him high. And then hemp is just another thing that doesn't really supposed to get you high. It's just, you know, a product made from weed is
I guess then I'm wondering, why is the last scene funny?
Which scene?
I think the joke's not weed specific. It's like presentation specific. Like it's about, the riff isn't about like people who sell weed. It's about people who present like whatever thing they're selling as like this like wholesome, like integrity laden, like what's the way to put it? Sort of wholesome, integrity laden product they're putting out that's like comes from the heart and it's very important to them and the people around them or whatever. But
at the end of the day, it's
really
weed.
just it's for profit, and that the same way that the vape advertises itself as like this high tech alternative, this weed people and Randy and other similar like Etsy shops that sell crystal candles are like advertising themselves as the opposite. But either way, it's just an advertising tact. It's the same kind of bullshit, just in a different package on either side.
I get, yeah, and that's what I think the ultimate message of the episode is whether you're waving the flag of progress or waving the flag of integrity, you're still liable to be full of shit.
Right, because for most of them, it's just a way to like move product. Like, it doesn't seem clear to me that Randy even fully has a concept of what he means by integrity, aside from the fact that it's just not vape stuff, right?
See,
it's not modern shit.
But
like that's really just like a costume for him or something, because he lapses in and out of it all the time. That's not the person he is.
Right, and that's the only the accent thing sells that point. But I think the main joke is just that the old cliche rugged farmer guy is a weed farmer now, you know, because that in today's society, that's really the main joke. And it's way less to me about like the integrity of weed farmers and if that's going on.
I'm not. Okay, yeah, I'm not trying to say that the joke works because weed farmers don't have any integrity. I don't think that at all. I guess I'm just saying that it's one thing if you're selling weed and you know you're selling weed and you're saying, hey, I've got a marijuana farm, fine. But if you're wearing shirts that say 100% hemp and are drinking hemp milk and talking about how you're creating organic products with your hands that make the world a better place, but you're actually just selling weed, well, then that's when you're full of shit.
But he didn't even get rich or anything off of all that. I mean, he has
could have
integrity.
been.
Exactly, but that's why he has fucking integrity, man.
Why? What's the difference?
You've seen that in movies, like, oh, hey, come sell your farm to the government, you know, or to the big company, and they're like, no, I'm holding out because I have integrity. I want to, you know, this means something. My great grandfather made this thing. That's like a cliche.
And he's been working that farm for
4 days. You know, yeah. So that's what they're doing.
My favorite style of South Park joke, by the way.
So I think that actually Randy has a shit ton of integrity and like genuinely, but yeah, it just kind of, since he's such a dumbass, like an ingenuine person, that you know, the accent thing makes him seem full of shit.
If integrity to him means smoking a joint instead of vaping weed, which if we're to believe is healthier for you, then does he really have integrity?
he's a moron. He's
Exactly.
a virtue signaling guy trying to be
Right.
a guy that's saying like I have Tegridy, and then
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah,
Okay.
they're both virtue signaling.
Yes.
The vape guy is virtue signaling by saying, I'm making the world a better place because vaping is healthy, when really all he's doing is making something more commercialized for children. And Randy is saying that I have Tegridy, but really he's just full of shit.
Well, because he wants to. I think it's more for him like a costume, like you're saying, Lux, that he wants to feel like he's getting that real, authentic Tegridy experience of living out on the farm. It's like kind of like people that go glamping or something, you know?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
oh, yeah, like I'm going out camping and, you know, it's like I want to have that authentic experience. So it's like this inauthentic authenticity is kind of what I think, yeah, like you're
I
saying
think
they're
it's just
making fun of.
inauthentic.
I think so, and I think that like and I think to get to what you were saying before about like the joke about farmers just being weed guys now, I think that the reason they picked weed for the thing is that like you could make this joke about Tegridy with like an almond farm or whatever, right? With like any kind of farm, but making it a weed farm gives you an added layer of like making fun of weed farmers in general and all the other stuff.
And
that they get
Colorado.
to do.
You know,
And
it's
Colorado,
a Colorado
and,
farm.
like,
They're the most.
There's just so many good things they get out of that, but I think that the joke itself, it could be done with like the central idea of the joke could be done with like any number of things. It's just weed's the best one, I think.
I guess, yeah, I kind of see that. But I think, it definitely is the best one because it fits so well with, you know, they
it
live
works
in
for so many
Colorado, it's
reasons.
a farm, yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the weed
That
episodes,
song was so good.
I think I prefer the one with them bouncing on their giant balls.
Yeah.
I mean, right? How could you not?
How could you not?
That's
hard to
one of the
compare.
funniest things South Park's ever done.
All right, let's talk about the kindergartners vaping.
Let's.
Yes,
I love the line. Do you know how hard it is being a kindergartner? Yeah, sometimes we need a break too. And first of all, I just love some of the just voice performances are what sell it. Those the kindergartners' small squeaky voices are so funny, saying things like, you know, stop being such a bitch, try this pineapple gummy bear flavor.
You saw that film 6 Days to Air, right? You know, there's that whole scene where they bring the kid that does Ike's voice in, and they're just cracking up like while the kid.
Isn't it Trey's daughter?
I think Trey's daughter does some voice, but and that might have been the scene, honestly. But I think
She's probably grown up by now.
yeah, probably, yeah. Anyway, it's a funny scene.
So
yeah, I also loved, just to add on that, the line where Cartman's like, oh, you know, kindergartners need a break too. They took away their nap time.
his butter says, yeah.
Look, and it seems like there's a little something to that in the sense that like increasingly like more and more people have the kind of like stresses and like force like stuff about the world put upon them at like younger and younger ages.
Absolutely.
This is like a big exaggeration of that, but I do think there is something to that, and also it's just a fucking hilarious bit.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is later revealed to be a commentary on predatory advertising to children, but given the initial scene and the focus on our current cultural shit show in earlier episodes, one could come to the conclusion that life is super anxiety-ridden for everyone, even kindergartners these days, which I think makes that part so much funnier.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it works so well. Maybe this is a good time for me. I love this episode for a lot of reasons. One of which is that vaping has really affected my life in such a negative way since it came into the world.
Go on.
Because
This is a safe
for those of
space.
you who don't know me well other than podcast, I smoke a ton of cigarettes and also a lot of pot. And I'm into doing it analog style. But it's mostly the cigarettes thing that's been bumming me out, because I'll go out with people and they'll be like, oh, let's go have a smoke break. I'm like, great, we're all going to go outside and have cigarettes and hang out. And then I'm the only one with a cigarette and everyone else is just standing there vaping. And it's like aesthetically bankrupt and like very weird for me. And I fucking hate it, which is part of why I like this episode so much. Like, I actually empathize with Randy a little bit just because of like vapes are so aesthetically lame.
Now, when you say aesthetically lame, you're saying that just because you don't give a fuck if they're healthier or anything. You just think that they look stupid.
Have you not tried the fruity flavors?
I chain smoke cigarettes, Ryan. I'm fully aware that that's much healthier to not do that. But like, I like smoking cigarettes, and I think vapes look silly. Also, they give me a tummy ache. But that's sort of my problem.
Have you tried the fruity flavors?
I have. They gave me a tummy ache and just made me want to smoke cigarettes more.
No, I'm not really into vapes either, but I am into how I can get high inside. That's obviously, it's the convenience factor that, you know, is the only
Right. Well, that
selling
is the best
point for
argument
me.
for it, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, should we mention the obvious thing is that vaping is an epidemic in schools. Jacob, our CEO, his nephew says that pretty much everyone in his high school has one.
Well, now are they
That's
weed or nicotine?
No,
vapes?
nicotine.
Yeah, because I have seen that. We should differentiate between the two. I don't do the nicotine ones.
Well, I don't think any of the kids in the school are doing weed vaping.
Right, I know, but it's weird. People say vaping like it's one thing when really it's a couple different things. It's not. There's a big difference between a weed vape and a nicotine.
I hear
vape,
you,
and
but when I
that.
hear somebody say vaping, I think nicotine, and then if
Really?
they say weed vaping, I think they're talking about weed.
Okay. Well, see, I always just be like, I don't know which one you're talking about. But I know that I went to oddly enough, I went to a 17-year-old birthday party recently. Okay. And I won't go into the backstory of that. But,
I think you might have to.
but everyone, it was a real thing. At dinner, the kids would take one bite of like a salad, and between every bite, they would pass around their vape. I'm not joking. And they talk about it like, yeah, we're all addicted to it. It's so bad for us. But I mean, everyone does it.
Do they say, but we need a break?
Yeah, they'll be like, hey, Jewel, where's the Jewel? Give me the Jewel break.
My dad has one of those Juuls.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And it blew my mind, and it disturbed
They just
me.
love ripping those chunky clouds.
But
the one thing I was surprised they didn't have in this episode was like vape tricks.
yeah,
They didn't
I
do any
know.
kind of play on that.
They can be cool.
It's because it's so easy to make fun of because the words people use to describe vape tricks are like the silliest vocabulary there is.
What
When
are
people
they?
Are like, oh, I'm puffing some luscious cotton. And it's just like, who are you? Like that's days of jokes.
Luscious cotton.
So I already
yeah.
talked about the claims of progress. Basically, the final statement that the exec makes is, "Didn't your mother ever tell you not to mess with progress?" And then when he's on the Tegridy farms, he says, "You can be a part of progress, or you can get run over by it." And then you can kind of see this echoed also in the B plot when Cartman is saying things like, "Kindergartners need a break too, Kyle. Would you rather them smoke cigarettes, drink?" And I mean, that's a fair statement, but that's kind of like the double-edged sword of progress is that, yeah, we can make a product that is healthier and cleaner, but at the same time, that's going to perhaps make it more acceptable to kids, and it's also going to allow them to infuse whatever passion fruit flavors that's going to make it
Right.
more friendly to children.
And the option of, hey, maybe they shouldn't do any of this isn't like even or thrown out there.
Right.
Yeah, totally. And if you take that thing we were talking about earlier, the idea that like society puts pressure on everyone, even kindergartners, then like there's this other element of this double-edged sort of progress where it's like, yeah, progress is like solving problems, but it's also creating the conditions for all this extra stress. Like if no one had been like, we need to progress connectedness, like I wouldn't have like Twitter anxiety every day. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's a part of progress, but like progress has a downside that then progress has to fix, and it's like a never-ending cycle of like problems and solutions.
Yeah, and then it's just fuck progress, Tegridy, fuck Tegridy, progress. It's just never gonna end.
It's a tennis match,
but-
worst tennis match ever.
Yeah, in terms of the children's stuff, I also want to talk for a second about the fucking vape man that I accidentally referenced earlier, because I thought that bit was amazing.
The
Kool-Aid
Kool-Aid
man.
dude.
The Kool-Aid vape man who busts in through the wall. Like, I love it because it engages with that sort of like infelicitous question of like of advertising, where it's like, of course this isn't for kids, wink.
Sure.
When
yeah.
it very much is. I thought that was very funny, and I also just loved his like cameo return appearance later in the episode when he shows up to ask for his
Who's
money.
supposed to be inside the costume?
Somebody
no
that
idea.
they owe money to.
It,
I don't
so
think it's a particular person.
really, because it sounded like somebody. It sounded like a character we'd heard, but I don't know, like Garrison or something.
One
Well, to be
thing,
fair, South Park has like 12 voices that like gets changed a little bit between 1,000 characters.
That's true.
the one thing I was expecting to see more of is that not only are the flavors targeted towards children, but they have like vape flair. You know, you can get like little cool keychains, even probably South Park keychains for your vape, or you can get a cool Rick and Morty keychain for your vape, or like hearts and stuff like that.
I
There are
didn't know
definitely
that.
things that make it more appealing to younger kids.
Accessories.
Yeah, accessories, exactly.
Vape
Yeah, the place
accessories.
by my house that sells the CBD pretzels sells like 100 different Rick and Morty vapes.
Oh,
crazy.
I'm sure. What was the hemp hat song? I didn't get that joke at all.
Which him?
I just think that it's like Two Princes by the Spin Doctors is a real
yeah.
stonery jam.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't recognize the song. I'm really bad with music.
Yeah, Two Princes, Spin Doctors. I want to say what, 1990, maybe 91,
yeah, early 90s.
And yeah, that was just that kind of style of hat. I don't even know what the fuck you call it. I guess what, a hemp hat? Is that what?
I guess.
But that's totally
I call it a Flappy Boy. But that's just
we don't live in a cold environment. I never see those things.
Yeah. I think it's just the aesthetic of it is funny that they picked that song. I wonder
why
what went
wouldn't
through
it be
their head.
like Snoop Dogg or something? That would seem much more on the nose. Maybe too on the nose.
But
I think that Spin Doctors is much more associated with like hemp shirt, like fuzzy flappy hat.
It's kind of like
aesthetic festival dude.
Yeah, festival hippie dude who Lollapalooza early 90s kind of yeah.
Things that Matt and Trey remember.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Bonnaroo before it was the head advertisers. Like,
Gen X.
that kind of shit. I also fucking loved the way that they mashed up Spin Doctors with like the weird like prog rock techno song that's playing in the vape club.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah.
Like it would fade in and out of each song as Randy punched through all those dudes. It was that scene was amazing and also very cathartic.
I especially liked it when he got to the bouncer, and then he's like, "You gonna whoop my ass or something?" I forgot what he said. And
he says,
like,
"You think I'm a pussy?"
You think I'm a pussy?
And he goes, "Yeah."
Because that's just the power of Tegridy.
Is it the power of Tegridy? Because I had to kind of do a math equation in my head. I was like, how did Randy just beat that guy up? And I go, oh yeah, he's a pussy because he has a pussy stick. I guess is the logic in the episode.
That whole scene.
I think so. I think that's exactly the formal logic.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that makes sense then.
That whole scene with him ramming through all the vapors, it's like a 300 joke, right? Because 300.
I thought it was like I guess, or Old Boy.
Well, no, but 300 specifically had the shot that followed people from a kind of from the side thing, and it would like slow down and zoom in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it would do like the musical shift too with the zoom ins, which they did with that mashup.
Right.
I think 300 is the call. I really like when South Park does like weird action set pieces. I think they're really good at it. I'm glad they don't do it all the time because it would get old, but like I'm always really excited when they have one.
Well,
I thought this was another really, really good one in a long list thereof.
Yeah. I thought it was a cool, funny bar fight, and I thought the 3D effects were great, especially with the clouds of colorful mist.
Yeah. It looked this episode looked really good.
Yeah.
That's like a thing we don't talk about on this show a lot, but like I thought the animation and the designs and just like the way they presented everything like looked really, really crisp and really clear and had like good, interesting frames. It was just like a really I love this episode. I think everything that happened was very funny. Everything was done really well. I really like this episode.
Hey, you gave it an A+++. It's a hard grade to get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a hard grade for anyone but you to give. You're an expert at giving the A+++.
Hey, I just call them how I see them.
Do we want to talk about our man Towley?
Baby.
My favorite part of the whole episode is when he's just so stoned and he goes, I didn't know chickens wore suspenders.
That was my absolute least favorite.
Really?
Part of the
I thought that was so funny.
See, why did that make you laugh?
Because it seemed appropriately absurd and random that somebody in a catatonic high state might say.
No, see, like one of my least favorite things sometimes is in movies and TV shows is like when people say or like they smoke a joint or something and they'll actually like hallucinate and see stuff, or they'll like say something so stupid that no one would ever say. No one gets high and just goes, "Well, I didn't chickens wearing suspenders." Like,
yeah, if you're an early smoker, yes, you do. You say
but Towley's a fucking pro, dude.
Well,
to
be
that's
fair,
what we're trying to get across that like this weed is so good.
Not only that, but in the recent Fractured Butthole video game, Towley stopped smoking for a while.
Okay, but all I'm saying is that I think that there are ways to cinematically represent people being very stoned and high. That
isn't funny.
No, that is still very funny, but more believable and more not just completely non sequitur absurd kind of. It's almost kind of the same thing when people take like acid in movies and then they have like there's colors and the frame starts switching. I know what they're trying to represent, but it's kind of like it's hard to represent people being really stoned on camera, I feel like, without your suspension of disbelief going crazy.
That's why I thought that one joke was fine. I'm glad there was only the one.
Yeah.
I think that I'd agree with you 100%, Ryan, if they like kept coming back to Tally just saying weird shit. But just like punching out one to me was like a fine way of just showing that like Towley's still ridiculously stoned at their house.
Yeah.
Like a quick check-in.
I guess it was just the line, and there was just a different way they could have represented that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Man, the thing that this episode did that I really loved, that I think is, I hope that they play off of, is all the Ronan Farrow jokes.
Oh, that was hilarious, dude. I thought he was going to be a character for sure.
Yeah, I hope he shows up later this season.
I think, is Cartman was he bullshitting him or what?
I don't know. I hope not. I hope Ronan Farrow is poking around. I mean, I hope so, in that I think that their exploration of like cultural shittiness was really interesting.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see more of it. And obviously Ronan Farrow is a part of that discussion. But also, I'm a little nervous because of like, who knows where that'll go. But I want to see what happens.
I'd be surprised if he shows up. I think it's going to be, if it is brought up again, it's going to be just a thing where Cartman is trying to blackmail people. And of course, everyone's going to be scared shitless.
You want to put money on that? Bet me $5.
If Ronan Farrow's actually going to show up.
I think he's going to show up as a character.
Sure, $5.
Right,
Let's do it.
We got a high five. Wait.
All right, that was it.
All right.
Okay. $5.
You all heard the high five podcast.
$5 so I'm saying Ronan Farrow will not show up.
Yeah, you think it's a joke.
He will be referenced, but he will not physically show up.
I think he's going to show up as a character and be a major part of an episode.
I just think
if
too
I
many
put
things.
$5 on one side, I'd be on Ryan's side. I
just think
think.
there's too many things that are happening. I think there are a lot of things. I'm surprised. There's a lot of things in the news that are happening that they're going to catch up on. One, where's the gay fish episode? I was expecting
gay fish episode.
There's got to be another.
Kanye.
Yeah, there's going to be. I mean, it seems appropriate to bring a gay fish back.
Yeah, to have Kanye back would be great.
And I know they did this last season, but the whole Elizabeth Warren DNA test thing seems very ripe for them. Then the midterms are coming up, so they have a lot to cover that I think Ronan Farrow might just be a joke that they move on from.
Maybe so. I just think after last week's episode, which was like interesting and divisive and like at least ambitious, if like maybe not the most thing I'd like them to be saying or whatever, like it would be cool to see them pursue that idea a little bit further, because it felt like they were trying to talk about a lot of things last week and they just didn't have time to get to all of them and like do them full justice all the way to me. And getting back into that, using Ronan Farrow for it, and I think would be cool is I guess my whole thought. It's not like a particularly nuanced thought.
Well, we'll see next week.
All right, guys, I don't really have anything else to talk about. If you guys want to move into the mailbag, you guys want to move into the mailbag?
Yeah.
All right. We've got a couple of voicemails. Let's go ahead and do those first. Ryan, I believe we have one from Jacob, if you want to play that one first.
Is that our Jacob?
Our Jacob.
Oh, wow. All right.
hooray.
Jacob.
Hey, Jacob.
Go, Jacob. Jacob, CEO of Wisecrack. Let's go. Hit it.
Hey, Wisecrack crew. It's Jacob calling from Wisecrack. I'm in the back of an airplane. I just finished watching the episode, and I was laughing my ass off at the airport. I'm about to fly off to Texas. But holy shit, what a fantastic episode.
Right.
I keep talking like Randy because I got Tegridy. I think this was one of my favorite episodes. It's not like my favorite episode in a long time, maybe like top 5 ever. I thought this was so brilliant and hilarious, and I just loved it. So respect my Authoritah crew. I have no idea what you guys are going to think. I think Ryan's going to love it. I think Jared's going to love it. I think Amanda's going to love it. I think everyone's going to love it. It's just solid. It's so good. Anyway, have a great podcast, guys. I'll be in the air while you guys are recording, but love you guys, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
That's all he said, huh?
Also, his tone in that
He liked
voicemail
it.
is exactly how I felt before we recorded. I was like, we're going to get on here, and everyone's going to be like, A+++. And this whole podcast is going to be us talking about how much we love this episode.
It was largely that.
Yeah.
We all liked it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. I just thought like I was just similarly enthused to Jacob, so I very much related to that voicemail. That's all I'm trying to say.
All right, what else we got?
Let's see. Listen, we're gonna go for Leo from Poland. Go, Leo.
I think his name is Leo. Whatever.
Oh.
Hi, my name's Ryoto, and I'm listening from Japan, and I wanted to say something about the 3rd episode. I think the part when Mr. Hankey and Kyle on stage was an elaborate commentary on U.S. and even world politics, focusing on things like Article 13 and the Kavanaugh situation. I thought it was a clever play indicating how politics are basically just a literal shit show and how we're basically just hopeless. If my voice sounds squeaky, I'm just 15, and I haven't hit puberty yet, so,
Nice, Leo.
yeah, sorry about that part. And, I really like your show, and I really hope they do an episode with the Kun and Friends fighting feminazis, and that is all.
Did he say he's calling from Japan? Did I hear that
That's
right
what
at
it
the
sounded
beginning?
like.
I think so.
Leo-
Unless there's a place that sounds like Japan that isn't Japan.
15-year-old Leo Poland from Japan. Nice.
I think it was
Leo.
Poland.
Oh, well, it says Poland on here.
That's
on the
because the
voicemail.
Google Voice thing sometimes gives transcripts and they get it wrong.
Okay,
So-
well, all right. I'm just reading what it's on here. But yeah, thanks, Leo. That was cool. I think that them picking Mr. Hankey, you know, to be the Kavanaugh Roseanne replacement was a very obviously direct choice, and
Because he's a piece of shit.
he's a piece of shit. Exactly. So I think that, yeah, I think you're totally on the nose there, man. And
And when he performs, it is a shit show.
it is a shit. It is a shit show. The whole thing is, and he gets shit all over anything he touches. Well, cool. Anyone else have anything to add to Leo?
I know. I thought that was a good observation. I think one of the cool things about last week's episode is that like you can zoom out or zoom in that metaphor of like pieces of shit to like broad scale politics, like broad scale politics, like a policy level, or like individual interactions and like within a community or famous people or like anywhere in between.
Yeah.
And I think this voicemail gets to that. And I think that was, like I said, I have mixed feelings about what they're saying last episode, but I think that one of the cool things about it is that like it's a scalable concept.
Yeah, and I loved last.
That's really fascinating.
And
to
you
me.
guys know I love last episode so much. We got some amazing emails. It was just as polarized as we were. There was people that were so on board for basically for both sides of the argument last time. And I'd just like to say, you know, that I got, you know, sorry, you can cut out this. And I'd like to just clarify that, you know, I wasn't trying to defend Mr. Hankey. Some people kind of, it might have come across that. But, you know, I was mainly just defending the idea of the gradations of people of shit. And we can't just label everybody that does anything a piece of shit and never talk to them again. And, yeah. Does that make sense?
All right, let's do one more voicemail before we move on to the emails.
Okay. One more voicemail. We got Victor.
What's up, Wisecrack? This is Victor from New Mexico.
My family lives in New
For
Mexico.
the respect our Authoritah. I just finished watching your Problem with Apu podcast, and I wanted to add a bit to what Ryan was saying in terms of the criticism that some people get about some of the things that they say online. Yes, they very obviously use the Roseanne situation as a big parallel, but it does happen to people of all levels, not just high earning actors or writers or directors. For example, I'm very in the video game industry. There seems to have been a lot of developers, writers, or even managers of smaller companies of all kinds of levels that have been losing their jobs because of political hits on Twitter or Facebook that point out something that they may have said either recently or years in the past that makes their employees fire them. A recent example happened that a writer for the Star Wars comic was recently fired as well for his politically charged tweets that were deemed offensive by Disney and Marvel. So even though I do agree that Roseanne and James Gunn will be fine, they have all the money in the world, this is affecting more than just the big actors and the big directors, and I just wanted to add that in there and see if it would strengthen the argument. Well, thank you. Love your podcast. It's crazy thinking that I might hear myself if this goes on, but thanks.
Amen, Victor.
Yeah, well, now you get to hear yourself. I like that voicemail particularly because so in the Discord, which you can join by going to Wisecrack Plus and becoming a patron, we were talking about this idea of like the difference between sort of the different ways that people get fucked by this sort of like you're a piece of shit mentality. And the situation he's talking about with the Star Wars author is a really interesting one because it basically what happened is he is a progressive dude. He tweets about like universal healthcare, shit like that. And people, sort of conservative folks, got really mad and started yelling at him on the internet, and he responded sort of vitriolically, and then Marvel was like, "Get out of here! You're being too mean on the internet." Which sort of speaks to this idea that like this is one of the issues I had with the episode, but as part of why I want them to examine this conversation further is that like there's a difference between PC babies making sort of semi good faith claims about like being offended about a thing, and like dudes organizing bad faith complaints about people that they don't like.
But
You know
why
what
do
I
you
mean?
think? Why do you deem that a bad faith complaint?
Well, because I think that they're like the James Gunn one's a clear argument of the example of this, but I think you can see this in a lot of places that like James Gunn made some jokes that were offensive, but has done a ton of work on the opposite side of that question and done like made monetary contributions and put in personal time to deal with those issues. So if your argument is that James Gunn's a bad dude because he believes these things, it just doesn't hold up, right? And if you're paying attention, you know that.
Well, right,
Same idea
but then I'd
with
like
Chuck
to,
Wendig. These aren't arguments.
I'd like to flip that around to Roseanne, who also, you know, playing devil's advocate, who also, you know, does stuff, charity stuff, also apologizes, doesn't say she didn't mean it, and all that stuff. Why do you think that that's a bad faith answer?
Her shit's not. They dug up a quote from 7 years ago, right?
Right. Okay. But aside from all
there's
those other
7 years
details,
of career in between that like indicated the difference. That quote isn't that different. It's just a more aggressive version of other shit she said. And even if she's nice about stuff, the argument's not, hey, look, this person used to be this bad guy. We should get rid of them because we don't like them because of their politics. It's, hey, this person did something shitty and we're mad about it. There's a different, like, there's a clear, for instance, when you have Mike Cernovich and dudes like that who make rape jokes on Twitter all the time being like, hey, James Gunn made a rape joke, you should get fired. That's clearly a bad faith maneuver.
see, I think that's right. But there's two different arguments that we're having at the same time. Is James Gunn or Roseanne, should they be considered pieces of shit by people because of what they did? And then there's, should they have had what happened to them at their jobs happen because of this stuff? And the second one is it's an easier thing. It's like ABC, it's an easy math equation for them. All right, James Gunn, Roseanne, I don't care what was in your mind, but this is bad attention for us. We're not making as much money. Goodbye, see you later. The first is a way more nuanced conversation. How are we as a society going to treat Roseanne and James Gunn from now on? Do we think that they're pieces of shit for what they did? And that's a more interesting question that I think that South Park was trying to hit on.
Right, and I think that's the part where this question of good faith versus bad faith becomes really important, and it means you have to do a little more digging into the people who are making the accusations than just like taking them on face, right? Like,
sure,
we shouldn't label James Gunn a piece of shit because the people who are making those arguments are making bad faith arguments that don't make any consistent sense and are being made from a position that is like clearly disingenuous, right? Like, if people are like making pedophile jokes, getting mad at James Gunn for making pedophile jokes, that's sort of crazy. Right?
No, he's made pedophile jokes, and I mean, I think it's fine, whatever, to say that because you can joke about whatever. But like for people that get mad about that kind of stuff, I mean, I don't think it's to declare that everyone that gets mad at James Gunn is in bad faith. I think is a bad faith argument.
That's the thing, right?
What?
That's the thing. If you look at the people who are making the comments,
yeah, but those are just the most famous people. It's like there's other people out there. I mean, just because he said it and then an asshole got mad at him doesn't mean that what he said is okay.
No, of course not. I'm not saying that you should make rape jokes and shit. That's bad shit to do. It's not cool. But there's like the thing that happened to James Gunn was then there's evidence of this. There's like textual evidence. This is what happened. Was a organized attempt by people who don't have an actual issue with the shit that he said, who have an issue with his contemporary politics, to use his old shit to undermine that. Right? They were never, the people who organized that movement, like Cernovich and those other dudes, were never that mad about what he actually said. They were mad about what he's saying now.
But I think that it kind of does so. To me, that's all irrelevant. It's like more like he still said the stuff. So did Roseanne. So it's like,
that's a distinction between those two people.
Exactly, and I agree with you. But I'm just saying that if we're gonna, if it's just mainly showing the dangers of this kind of culture mob stuff. If Mike Cernovich can have that power, then the whole foundation of the mob is bad. That's kind of
totally, and that's why the mob needs to do like one step more research before they latch onto these movements. That's all I'm saying.
All right,
let's go into the mailbag, the emails.
Also, we'll get back to this because we have some emails about these questions too. So I'm only doing 3 emails from the email and a couple from the Discord this week because we have some long emails, but they're really, really good. The first is from Noel. She says, "Hey, authoritarians, I've been a huge fan of your podcast since you started last season. I think you do a great job of analyzing the show, and I always enjoy hearing everyone's different opinions on each episode. Thanks, Noel." With the return and departure of Mr. Hankey last week and this week's return of Towley, it seems like Matt and Trey are consciously looking back on the series and choosing to bring back old characters in order to make some point about how the world and the show have changed since their last appearance. Mr. Hankey's appearance showed a contrast between the old humor of South Park, mostly dick and fart jokes with racially insensitive jokes thrown in, something we also saw last season with the return of Terrence and Phillip, and the humor of more recent South Park seasons, satirical, topical, and socially aware, while still making fun of social awareness. Towley's appearance seems like it could be a reference to how social attitudes and laws surrounding marijuana have changed in recent years as more people accept pot for medical and recreational usage. In the past, Towley has always been depicted as a massive train wreck who was constantly too high to get anything done, but in this episode, he's employed and seems to be successful, a huge departure from his former self. And then actually I'm going to skip the rest to just get to the part where there's the question, which is, with this in mind, what South Park characters would you like to see make a return and in what context? And she gives some examples. Do you guys want to hear the examples or you just want to go for it?
I want to hear the examples.
All right. Personally, I think it would be interesting to see Dr. Mephisto return. He played an important role in the Fractured But Whole. True. He hasn't really done anything in the series since 2001, or since 2010, I guess, 8.5 years ago. It's hard to one of the numbers. There was a typo. 2001 blank. With all of the progress that has been made with regard to genetic engineering and the conversations about genetic modification, I would be interested to see how the show would deal with this, and 2018 would change Dr. Mephisto's character. He'd also play an interesting role in an episode about science denial, which I think could make an interesting South Park episode since both conservatives and liberals are guilty of peddling anti-science conspiracies. But science denial tends to be associated with the political right, not without reason, but still both sides have done it, and Matt and Trey like to point out that kind of hypocrisy. Other characters I'd like to see return are Big Gay Al, and...
that was going to be mine.
Sorry for the super long email. It's all right. It's really good. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about the episode, and hopefully my question, keep up the great work, Noel. So yeah, who would you guys like to see come back and how?
Well, I was going to say Big Gay Al. Now I have to think of something else.
I'd like to see Al Gore come back.
Man, Bear, Pig.
Fucking yeah, dude.
We got that whole climate report that just came out. He needs to come back and talk to it.
What about Captain Hindsight? Remember him?
Yeah.
Yeah, he could be a fun one. I am very into... I would like to see Mr. Slave come back in the similar sense of Big Gay Al. I just feel like the discourse surrounding sex for everyone has gotten way more like open and freaky and weird in recent years.
Wasn't Mr.
And I'd like
Slave,
to see them interact with that stuff.
Mr. Slave was in the last season, right? I believe there's either the last season or the season before where somebody has to stand up to the president, and so they bring in Mr. Slave. I think, it was season 20. I think it was just season 20.
He was around recently for that, but I'd like to just go more into like the original Mr. Slave character. You know what I mean? Like the sex freak Mr. Slave and not like Mr. Garrison's friend Mr. Slave.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Mr. Hat come back and be independent of Mr. Garrison.
Kyle's cousin Kyle. My glasses.
What would you do with Kyle's cousin Kyle?
Scott Tenorman.
Is Scott Tenorman dead? No, he's not dead. He must die, but he's not dead.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Oh, so must we all. But thanks for the great question, Noel. That was a really good one. I think pretty on point. This next one is one that both Ryan and I tagged for the show.
Oh, cool.
It's from Tom, and he says,
"That was a good one.
Yeah, this email bangs." He says, "Hey, respect our authoritarians. I just had a thought about the problem with Apu and his views on PC babies. Obviously, the characters of the PC babies are meant as a dig on people who problematize everything, as you guys talked about during the episode. You also discussed how South Park in general this season has been covering the theme of how people react to events and actions as being equally important, if not more important than the events and actions themselves. I think that these two collided in a bit during the scene where Kyle and Mr. Hankey are putting on the show to try to reinvigorate Christmas spirit. As Mr. Hankey starts to introduce the show, the PC babies cry every time he says a seemingly innocuous Christmas line. When Mr. Hankey asks about them, someone from the crowd responds to explain that they are just the PC babies, but the rest of the crowd is still smiling and enjoying the show. I think the timing is relevant here because the crowd doesn't turn on Mr. Hankey until he starts to flip out on the PC babies and calling for them to shut up. In fact, nobody who hears PC babies crying the whole episode seems to decide that they are right to be crying at the problematic things the babies are reacting to. They seem more amused at the crying babies, and they seem ready to break out the torches and pitchforks."
Wait, doesn't the guy say, "Oh, those PC babies, sometimes they don't even know what they're crying about"?
Yeah, well, I think that's sort of what he's getting at here.
Right.
But there's another paragraph I just had to burp. I think part of what South Park is saying here is that there's a difference between truly shitty behavior and the things that set PC babies off. Well, there's probably a decent amount of overlap between the two. I think South Park is trying to say that PC babies can't destroy someone's life, career, etc. by themselves, that overreacting to them like Mr. Hankey does just makes you the bad guy. As Kyle finds out, leaves you covered in shit. Just an additional thought about an episode I thought was effing hilarious. Thanks, Ian's. I love the podcast. Oh, Pittsburgh dude.
Yeah, I guess I kind of disagree with this because if a Twitter mob goes after you, you don't have to respond to any negative thing you're being accused of doing, and you'll still go down. I don't think it necessarily only will happen to you if you just respond negatively to someone's criticism of you.
And that's why I think the episode, even though we love it so much, is kind of, like we said before, a little bit of a muddy point about that, because they could have gone the route where it was just the PC babies overreacting to Mr. Hanky, who's genuine Christmas stuff. If that was just what they did, then that would be one way to do it. And then if it was just another character who was just a piece of shit, that'd be another way to do it. But they went kind of both. They kind of had him be triggered, basically, by the PC babies, and then turn into an actual piece of shit because of it, which kind of, when we're talking about how do we judge these people, like before, it makes it hard, because he does turn into an irredeemable asshole,
Yeah. I
he definitely
agree.
turns
and
into an
I
asshole.
a little more, Jared, than you do, because I think that there is something to this. Like, when the outrage cycle happens, it's always like a bad thing happens, we wait for the apology is usually shitty, and then everyone gets mad. Or everyone gets mad, wait for the apology, it's usually shitty, everyone gets mad again. But there are cases where that's not what happened. Like the Dan Harmon thing is a really good example, right? Like, he put out a really well thought out apology about his shit, and everyone decided to love Dan Harmon again. Like, they're mad at him for a day.
Some people have been able to dodge bullets. Like, whatever happened to James Franco or Tavis Smiley, these people they made it. They survived somehow. And it probably a lot that has to do with the fact that they didn't react with outrage. Right,
exactly. So there's that, or the people who apologize sincerely seem to do okay. And I think that the people who get really mega attacked in the Roseanne kind of way are people who don't apologize sincerely and don't acknowledge they did a bad thing and are just like, oh, I'm sorry I made everyone mad, as opposed to being like, I'm sorry I said this bad thing. Right? Like, people who don't take responsibility end up looking a lot worse than the people who do. And I think that there's something to that in this email that I think I do generally agree with.
And then, I totally agree with everything you said, because and then there's the added muddiness to the difference between people that say fucked up shit and then people accused of sexual assault, which is the whole Kavanaugh. That's what was so weird about them kind of riffing on Kavanaugh and Roseanne at the same time.
Right, because you kind of have to have a lower threshold for getting mad about sexual assault than for angry, shitty tweets.
Well, there's just, if someone says a shitty tweet, we all saw it, that's all right, now we're getting mad about, should we be mad about this? If it, with the other thing, it's just it's a different dynamic, it's just
yeah. And it's a much more direct form of violence than just
yeah, it's way more hardcore.
Bitch was white,
yeah, it's way worse.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we got one more email. These have all been so fucking good, you guys. These are a series of bangers, and this one is from
thank you to everyone who wrote in.
Hi, Wisecrack gang. I recently started listening to your podcast and haven't been able to put it down since. Hell yeah, thanks, Uma. The commentary and insight you guys have to the show are really interesting, and more often than not gives me a new perspective to the show that I love, while also giving me an excuse to think about South Park while working, which is something I can't thank you enough for. After last week's episode, I was prompted to go watch Season 1, Episode 9, where Mr. Hanky was first introduced, and I feel that it gives a cool context to the latest episode. In this episode, Kyle is the only one able to see Mr. Hanky, making everyone in South Park think he is mentally disturbed, getting him locked up in a mental institution until the rest of the town begins to believe in Mr. Hanky, bringing him to life and leading the town to free Kyle. The main point of this episode, though, deals with political correctness, as the town fights over what can and cannot be depicted at Christmas time, leaning heavily into the idea that people offended by Christmas are themselves destroying what Christmas is meant to represent. The fact that Mr. Hanky specifically gets kicked out of town for being politically insensitive in the latest episode seems pretty significant when he originally represented the need for freedom of expression over political correctness. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and what exactly, if anything, this means for the episode, society, and or South Park as a show. I'm really looking forward to listening to the next episode. Keep up the good work. Uma. That's really interesting. Do you guys have any thoughts about this? About the difference between old Mr. Hanky and new Mr. Hanky?
Well, they're definitely presenting him in a different context. I mean, old Mr. Hanky was just simply literally a poop joke. Now it's now they're contextualizing it with, now he's a piece of poop who takes Ambien and shit posts.
Right. Yeah. Kind of well said. I think it's kind of it used to be that his being a piece of shit was a liberatory thing. It was I'm a piece of shit, but we can represent anything at Christmas because freedom. And then now, and Christmas is everything, and Christmas can even be a poop. And now he's a piece of shit, and being a piece of shit is just shitty.
But in the sense, I think we're mixing the literal and the metaphor here, because he never said horrible things before. He's actually always been a very benevolent character and just talking about the spirit of Christmas. He never really had a dark side that I remember.
Right. No, but in the episode, it was all people were like, I don't think Christmas should be a poop.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I'm getting at. I think that's what the email's getting at. Ryan, were you about to say anything?
No, I hadn't watched that episode in a long time. I kind of need to go back and look at it, but interesting.
Yeah. Maybe that's something we should try to do. Is I think if all these episodes are going to be callbacks, we should maybe try to find the originals and check them out if we have the time.
Plus, we do have the off weeks. I think next week is an off week, so we might do a classic episode.
Oh, hell yeah. That would be great. That's awesome. And now we have 2 quick ones from the Discord, which again, you can join by going to wisecrackplus.com and joining the Patreon. 2 quick ones. First, from Fox Metro. Would you give up the city life for the simple existence of a weed farmer?
Fuck no.
Yeah,
I don't know,
either.
man.
Absolutely not. I love living in the city. Jared?
I like my amenities
I would
here in the
try
city.
it. I would try it for a week to see if I like it.
Well, okay, yeah, a week vacation on a farm.
No,
that's a way different
but I've just
question.
I've never lived on a farm. I've never lived on a weed farm. I might like it. I definitely see the appeal.
Yeah, you would get bored pretty quickly, dude, I think.
I mean, it's not that you won't have internet. It's not that you won't have electricity.
Yeah, you still get bored.
I don't know. I'm much more of a shut-in than you. Like, I don't need to socialize much.
Somehow, despite being a shut-in, I also feel like I need to live in a city. I just like need loud noises around me all the time. To drown out.
I
my
love
feet.
being able to walk to stores and restaurants
Exactly.
and stuff. That's really important to me.
So it's like, oh man, hey, I need my groceries. I'll be back in 2 hours.
Hey, man.
Does that sound fun to you?
We're living in the era of Amazon drones, man. A drone can
Yeah,
just
drone's
drop
not
my
gonna come out to the
grocery.
fucking
Why not?
country.
The drone
Ain't gonna happen,
Drones got plenty of time.
dude. That's some
Ain't
200.
gonna
That's like 100 years in the future.
100 years, try like 3.
3 out to the fucking middle of nowhere. There's no way they're gonna be in cities, dude.
There's going to be
For the first
there's
10
going to be an
years.
Amazon office every 100 miles.
It's gonna be like McDonald's.
God,
They're everywhere.
A nightmare, a very real nightmare.
What's happening, baby?
And yeah, no, for real. And the last one is from Died Famous, who is the artist who made the really cool graphic we used on the BoJack episode.
Oh, nice.
That I was really excited about.
Sweet.
And he says this episode was about Tegridy, from selling to kids to selling out. They hit some awesome points on what it means to stand for something in 2018. So my question is, what do you think Matt and Trey are trying to say about integrity by bringing back both Mr. Hanky and Tylerly, and we can even tie in the Catholic Church in consecutive weeks after a long time without them? So it was similar to the email from Noel, but I'm wondering if we have any more thoughts about integrity specifically.
Yeah, I kind of touched on this a little bit, and my take on it is that it's a classic Randy overreaction to the issues presented in the first 3. So it's all right, there's all these modern problems happening. I mean, I don't know if you can consider Catholic priests raping children to be a modern problem, but we'll just say it is. And he overreacts by saying, all right, we basically got to throw modernity out the window and just go back to a farm, make shit with our hands. And of course, it's Randy, so he's an idiot. So he overdoes it and totally misses the point and still doesn't act with a lot of integrity.
Yeah, I think there's all of that in there, but I do think that Matt and Trey are, like Randy's little monologue in the car there is supposed to be, I feel like, how
we all feel,
or how at least how Matt and Trey feel.
We all have those moments
that we're just like, what the fuck is going on? Like with all this shit, I got to get out of here. So I think that they're definitely, Randy is supposed to be speaking for the zeitgeist. Or people like Matt and Trey, but then, like you said, of course, because he's Randy, he fucks it all up. Do I think that they're saying we all should go and live on a marijuana farm? No, but I do think that they're saying, like, let's get back to basics of let's remember,
I
how it was to be authentic at one point in our life.
I think it's already almost there, but by 2019, by midway through the year, I think that everybody will look at social media companies like tobacco companies, like these people.
You think we're that close? There's no way, dude.
I don't know,
dude. After the fucking Facebook news from yesterday, I think we're getting very close.
What Facebook news from yesterday?
That Facebook had been falsifying video views for several years, leading to like thousands of people losing their jobs.
Yeah, including me.
Yeah, I mean, everybody who's been on Facebook video knows that a lot of it has to be bullshit.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, but like when I used to, there are many reasons I'm no longer a basketball writer, but one of them is that like there was the pivot to video a couple of years ago that was all based on Facebook metrics. And so like I stopped having my like freelance sources dried up because like they stopped putting out written content. Like,
and they
Facebook
stopped prioritizing
literally
it.
has cost me jobs.
Yeah,
And, like,
we
I'm
stopped
often the only
producing. We stopped producing Facebook content because they completely deprioritized it. They deprioritized publishers as a kind of hollow way to apologize for the election, I guess. But yeah,
Fuck all that.
And so I don't know. I'm with Jared. I think that public opinion on these companies is turning quick. And as far as for Died Famous's question about Mr. Hanky and Tally specifically, I think that the show is like, it's showing that like, I think this honestly displays sort of more integrity than like most other stuff they've ever done, in that like they're aware that like the world around them is changing. So they're bringing these characters back to say like, well, if this character existed now and we had to like change our approach to the character since 2018, like how would we take this? Like what did we think about the character then and now? Like that kind of self-examination, like self-awareness is like a very integrity laden thing. And I'm really into that, into the way that they're like going back and like rewinding and like revisiting the South Park canon every episode, basically the last like 3.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I like them re-examining these
I'm having
people.
a hard time drawing a concise statement about Tally because on the one hand, yeah, he has a job, but on the other hand, he's still laying on the floor talking about chickens with suspenders high as a kite.
He has a sweet like government job, dude. I mean, it's awesome. He's living it up out there on the Colorado weed farms.
Jared,
Well,
he
it
has
seems like he
glasses now.
quit his job, and now he's living on the farm with Randy, as we see at the end.
Oh, you think he? Oh, yeah. So he probably got fired or quit because he was just too high from his jungle kush.
Maybe. I wonder if this was his first day on the job, and Tegridy Farms was his first
That
stop.
would have been funny if they said that. I definitely loved the awesome cinematic reveal of
Oh, hell
Towley
yeah.
being the cape that Randy was wearing.
I have it written down. I just got to say it because it's just too
I didn't
cool.
see it coming, and when that happened, I'm like, oh shit!
So he says, "Didn't your mother ever tell you not to mess with progress?" And Randy says, "Yeah. She told me if you're going to fight for your integrity, don't forget to bring a towel." And yeah, of course, I like stood up with arms in the air. Yeah,
Towley!
that was so epic.
Yeah, that was truly great. God, yeah, what a good episode. What a good set of emails and Discord messages. Thank you all so much. You can always email us if you want to get
And
your emails on the
voicemails.
show at southpark@wisecrack.co, or you can join the Discord again for the 3rd time. Rule of 3s. I'm a comedian guy. At Wisecrack Plus by joining the Patreon, and then you can talk to me and Jared and Ryan and everyone in the Discord.
And I feel bad that Amanda wasn't here, and we had so many good emails that were, on her and our side, the different kinds. So I feel like we should revisit some problem with the poo emails at some point when Amanda's back.
Yeah, I would love to, except that all of those emails, no matter who they agreed with, were mad at me. Like, if they were agreeing with you and Jared, they were mad at me for siding with Amanda, and if they were agreeing with Amanda, they were mad at me for siding with you guys.
All right, guys. Well, we're gonna
Story of my fucking life.
We're going to sign off. If you guys want to leave us a voicemail, 213-534-8807.
Make them short, snappy, and fun.
I believe South Park is having an off week next week, so we're either going to do a classic episode or we might take the week off as well, or maybe we'll just have Amanda on and do a full mailbag episode. We'll announce that soon. But I want to thank my co-host today. I want to thank Ryan and Lux for joining me.
Yo, you're so welcome, Jared. I love it.
Could
I
not
love
be
being
more
here.
welcome.
All right, so you guys keep the Tegridy high, and we'll see you later.
Where can we
wait,
find
can
you
I-
on the internet?
Oh,
Oh,
plug a quick
yes,
thing?
yes. Go Lux.
Sorry, this is just an important time to plug a thing. This Saturday, Party World Wrestling, the wrestling show that I write and direct for and do videos for, is having our first road show, which you can stream live on Twitch at twitch.tv/partyworldwrestling. That's at 7 Central, I think, so 5 o'clock Pacific or 8 o'clock Eastern. So
yeah.
check it out. It's really cool, and the more views you have, the more people will like me.
I want to watch that. That sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'll send you all a link. But yeah, please, if you have time, check it out. It's going to be super rad.
Hell yeah.
Okay, and Ryan, where can we find you on the internet?
Well, and also my roommate is wrestling tomorrow in Anaheim. Techno Destructo, look him up. Techno Destructo wrestling in Anaheim. Come to the show; it's going to be great. And you can find me on the internet at Ryan's Game Show and Ryan's Shorts. I'm releasing a video about the presidential alerts I got on my phone the other day. Fucking pissed me off. I don't know about y'all, but anyway, I got a whole comedy bit about that. See ya on the internet.
Cool, guys. So if you live in LA, be sure to check out our Twitter page to get more information about our live show, which is on the night of the 26th at 10 p.m. I know Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming out that day, but trust me, it'll be even better if you wait a day to play it. So Signing off from Hollywood, California. See you guys next week or the week after.
Goodbye from Hollywood. Wait.
That's not what I say on this show. What do I say here?
I don't know.
Screw you guys. We're going home.